Alright guys, welcome back to the channel. So if you saw the last video, you know the Bearcat is fixed up and ready to fly, minus the receiver, which should be here in a couple of days. So probably fly that maybe this weekend. We'll see if it shows up in time. And so we are starting a new project. This is a Top RC full composite Corsair. So it's a 93-inch wingspan. Big wing, big fat wing, and it's a little bit bigger than the Bearcat. The Cowling's actually a little bit smaller than the Bearcat, but it's pretty close. So if you followed my Bearcat build, you know that has a DLE 222 4-cylinder with a mostly scale 4-blade prop. It's actually still a little bit small, but what we have here is a 32-inch 3-blade, a Bela 3-blade. This might be a little too much pitch for the motor, but there's not many options in this size. They do have a 28-inch, but that would not be nearly enough load for this motor. So because the 4-blade 28-inch is barely enough load for the motor. So anyways, this is DLE 222. This is a 10 or 11 pound monster. So instead of a bunch of lead in the nose, I'm just going to put this in there. It is going to require some pretty major modifications, the firewall, to get everything to fit. But it does fit in the cowling. The spark plugs will probably stick out just a little bit. Not a huge deal. Not super worried about it. But anyways, that motor's going in here. So what I've done to start off with is I have cut the skin. I've done some measurements. And I've cut the fuselage. It hasn't fallen off yet because there's a bunch of structure in here. So I got to take this out because the fuel tank, they had to set up for a really small fuel tank. And that's just not going to cut it with this motor. So I'm going to cut this section of the wood out. And which isn't a huge deal. I don't think that'll really affect anything. I'm going to have to modify the forward section of the wood. But anyways, so let me bust off this fiberglass section up here, and then I'll get to modifying the wood structure behind it and making a new firewall for the new motor. All right, so after some destruction here, I was able to remove the firewall and did some mock-up testing of the engine. The motor's not going to be mounted this far back. I got the little standoffs that it comes with, and to be about where it needed to be was right about here. Well, there wasn't going to be a lot of contact area between this framework and the firewall, so I decided to push it farther back, use standoffs, and have the firewall be mounted to all this, which will really help tie it into the structure of the airplane, which, to be fair, is way more than what the Bearcat's got. The Bearcat has a pretty beefy firewall, but there's not a lot of structure in there, and it's tied into the fuselage with some fiberglass as best as I could. So this should be way better. Let's see. So I got to cut out some I'm going to do 2 layers of 1/4-inch birch ply, and then I open up this spot here for a fuel tank. 32 fits with plenty of room. I may end up, I'll probably start with a 32, and then I can go to something bigger. I think the Bearcat's got a 50 in it, so I want to say with the Bearcat I started with a 32, and it was pretty marginal. So that motor takes a lot of fuel. So anyways, yeah, shouldn't be too bad. The nice thing about a Corsair is that it's pretty much circular and everything is on center line as far as like the motor mount and all that stuff goes. So whereas the Bearcat's not really circular, so it's harder to just be like, yes, that's the center. This is where the motor goes, and then adjust the cowling to fit that. Bearcat's a little bit different, but so this should go. Accidentally cut through the skin in a couple spots. Not a huge deal because this paint job isn't staying. Are you shocked? Neither am I. So, anyways, yeah. So why would I cut up a brand new, untouched model? So I could put that on the front of it and swing it with that bad boy. So I don't do things the easy way because, well, everyone does it the easy way, and I like doing things different. So it is going to be fully refinished. I haven't quite selected a scheme yet, but I'm pretty boring when it comes to Corsairs. Much like the Bearcat, I just like them in blue, like basic dark blue paint schemes. So shoot me, you know. But I think they look really pretty. There's a restored one that I saw at the Chino Air Show in 2006, and it just blew me away. It was just absolutely gorgeous. I think it was a fresh restoration, and every nut and bolt inside the wing folds and landing gear is just spotless and beautiful. So that might be what I try and go for on this thing. Or I could do a 3-tone scheme. Originally I was going to convert this to a -4, but I just don't have the energy for whole new canopy, whole new cowling, different belly. It'd be really cool, but I think I'm going to do a later version -1 with the 8 rockets and the hard points and all that stuff. So anyways, that's where we're going with this thing. And speaking of Corsairs, got Devotion on for some background noise. We took some glow models out yesterday, the Corsair P51 and this Cadet, which we haven't flown in years, and we had a blast. This little Mustang that I got from my friend Brett flies really good. It's got an OS 60 SF in it, a pretty low time one that I picked up on eBay, and it just runs fantastic, and this thing flies really well. This has a Magnum 91 on it, and it's a firecracker for sure. So that's an old Great Plains Corsair that I built a few years ago. So anyways, much like the Corsairs, P47 is going to get the same treatment, same motor. Gonna have to hack the crap out of the firewall area and totally redo everything, but I love this motor. These 222s are awesome engines for a scale model, especially. They might not be optimal for aerobatics, like they might not be as robust and as powerful as the DA200, but for the price, they just, I mean, I don't want to jinx it, but the Bearcat, the motor just hasn't missed a beat. So it's been really good. And if you can swing a giant prop, a scale prop, that's really what I'm going for. I got 3D printed radial, just like the Bearcat, coming for this thing. So it'll look from a few feet back, you won't even realize that it's got a 2-stroke in it. And these things sound pretty cool too. So anyways, once the motor's installed, the rest of the airplane is going to be very straightforward, kind of by the book. I did get the landing gear for it. Seem like pretty solid units. We'll see how they hold up. For the price, they better hold up at least for a while. They're not cheap. So, and then I got some Robart wheels and tires to go on. I had these on the Bearcat, and I just swapped those out. So these look much better than the top RC wheels and tires that come with the Corsair landing gear. So, and I'm probably gonna swap these hinges out for some Robart hinges because these seem kind of chintzy, and this is a big, heavy, fast model. So anyways, let's get some firewalls cut out for this thing.
Success was undeniable.
Watch some Corsair goodness. So this went pretty smooth. Like I said earlier, because it's a circle, it makes everything really easy. So I got the bland nuts in it. I got the hole for the fuel line to come through, and or fuel lines, I should say. And this is ready to bond in place now. The cool thing is the exhaust is going to come out almost exactly in the scale location. So they won't be 3 pipes like the real one, but it'll work. So I'm going to tack this in place with some super glue so it doesn't move, and then I'm going to do an epoxy fillet around everything. And then yeah, once that's dry, that's it. Motor's mounted. I'll have to set up for the throttle servo and then do something for the ignition boxes. Now I might be able to mount those inside, but I'll probably stick them like my Bearcat over here above the motor just to keep it all up front. And yeah, so it's moving along well. Okay, so I have tacked the firewall in for now. See from the back side here, and I've got the exhaust areas cut away, and I've trimmed the pipes down to be somewhat flush with the surface. As you can see, this is the scale exhaust area, and they're almost perfect. Certainly close enough for this model, and then once I paint it, it's going to be all dark blue. You're not going to see any of this stuff anyways. I would like to put smoke on this thing. These are the smoke ports if you wanted to run smoke. But anyways, before I glue the cowling in and seal off all the wood, fuel proof all the wood on both sides, I guess, I'm going to get the cowl mounts figured out, get those tacked into place so that I can epoxy those in at the same time as the rest of the stuff. So then once I have the mounts set up, then it's just gluing and sealing everything, and then the firewall is essentially done, and I can just assemble the airplane. I've been working on this for about 3 hours so far. 3 hours in, and motor's mounted. And I've just got to figure out what to do with the throttle servo. That could be a little interesting because there's no room right here. I might have to put it somewhere over here and run a bell crank or something, because that's going to be interesting. But other than that, pretty straightforward mounting wise. And yeah, let me get this cowl figured out. Wish I had my 3D printed radial engine, but I don't quite have that yet. So anyways, this cylinder might be interesting for cooling purposes. It's going to be cool air like the Bearcat, cool air coming through the top around the backside. I think it'll all work out in the wash. I'll cut this out. This is the backfire ports on the real one, so this is kind of like an open thing. So I may actually, let's see, the firewall's already right there, so I can't cut these out any bigger, but I'll cut this out and I'm going to open up the cowl flaps pretty big. So anyways, and then actually on the Bearcat I put some velocity stacks on it. If I get those same stacks for this, I'll be able to actually, they'll be flush on the surface of the cowling, so they'll be getting cool air instead of breathing in the hot air coming across the motor. So anyways, let me get this cowl figured out and we can go from there. Alright guys, that's pretty much it. I got the firewall glued in. You can see I got a Capasil and resin, we call it a nugget at work. It's an adhesive now. Essentially you take resin and make an adhesive out of it. So that's all glued in from that side, and then all around here as well, and then a couple other spots. It needs to be like cleaned up a little bit, sanded smooth. There's some stuff sticking out that could hurt you or get in the way, but it's definitely strong, not going anywhere. 1/2 inch thick worth of marine grade plywood, and yeah, it's good to go. So it's not quite fully cured yet either, so it's still a little bit on the green side. But yeah, so that wasn't too bad. So now it's just now that this modification portion of the build is done, or the assembly, we can just do all the normal stuff, install servos. I still have to figure out the servo setup for the throttle, but aside from that, it's installing gear and servos, get the motor installed, and yeah, we'll be hopefully running this thing up before you know it. We're going flying tomorrow. Today's Christmas. Going flying tomorrow with our new toys. So if you saw my community post, I got a Viper 90, an E-Flight Viper 90, and then Bentley got a FMS 80mm Hawk. So anyways, we're going to be flying those tomorrow, and then a couple other jets. We got the F-16 is going to go with us, and probably the YF-17, and yeah. So hopefully next week, if I get my receiver in time and this thing goes together okay, pretty sure I have everything I need, so this might potentially fly next week. And so maybe we'll take this and the Bearcat out the same day. So we'll see. But yeah, I hope you guys enjoyed the first episode on the Top RC Corsair project. And you know the deal. We'll see you in the next one.